Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 4, reflecting on summative assessments, the 21st century copyright, and going from good to great. Yes, this class is a lot of work. And for many of us who have taken this course and other At One courses, we can really empathize. However, speaking as one who is a person trained in pedagogy, I taught professors or actually faculty at the University of Pittsburgh. One of the things that's critical is I really thought I knew a lot about teaching until I taught online. So it is a matter that, having an open mind to know what else one can learn. Had all the psychology in dealing with pedagogy and learning and memory and all of that. However, when you're dealing with it online, there are a couple of points some of you have made already. The matter that how important it is to have directions that are clear, how important it is to have the follow-up, the feedback. All of these are very helpful. I mean, I could sit in my face-to-face class and maybe not do any deliverable. For probably a couple of weeks, I'm just taking attendance to see if they're there. However, in an online class, it's really important to have a deliverable. Henry Preventure, one of our new faculty members, and he is teaching online in criminal justice, has a check-in point where the students can check in the discussion board to see how things are going. I tend to use the discussion board, journals, any kind of element or what we call deliverable that can really see that they're engaged and involved. I also use the online hours. For me, because I teach a 5-unit class, it's important for me to see and use the analytics to see how long my students were actually in the many activities that I've provided online for them. So this is something that I think as a faculty member, and we talk about this for those of you who are already involved in the Distance Ed committee, and these are the kinds of points that we discuss. Now, what I have for you this week, if you look down under, I believe it's Citrus Documents under Reference Materials. Now, in that, you'll see a rubric that we use at Citrus for reviewing courses, any online course. And there are a series of elements, and I'd suggest that you look at that. We try to evaluate, or rather review, our folks who are up for review or tenure based on those elements. And the same with those who may be adjuncts. So make yourself, really familiar with that. Another part that I added on here was a discussion board rubric, which is relatively general. I like to make it general because this way I can change the questions or whatever it is I might be discussing with my students. I can make it more personable, and I can then put through the rubric any kind of information, feedback for them so they can do better next time, so they know what they did. Maybe they made errors. For example, I get quite a few students, and it's an English class, that like to use the lowercase I rather than the capital I. So I'm forever, making those statements where spelling and grammar might be concerned. Something else that I included in there was a midterm barometer. I do a climate barometer, kind of what's the climate of the class. And I'll do this around the 8th week for a 16-week class, or if I'm teaching a fast track class, around the 4th week. I've included that there for you so that you can kind of look at what I might be interested in gathering. Now, when you're using the survey of Blackboard, you never really know, who said what, but you just get a check mark next to the student's name. I try to give them extra credit for that piece because I think it's important that I acknowledge it, but yet I let them know too, I really don't know which statement they responded to. This year, I've been very interested in finding out because I went to an open education resource and I wanted to know what my students thought about the free textbook. Now, the textbook's available in the bookstore, but also available online, and I provided the various links for each module that I was presenting. It was quite positive. So if you're doing something new or you want to know if there's something that's challenging, what's challenging, what do they not understand, you'll find out that your students are the best barometer to make that rather than have some sort of a grievance go out. This is really important that that we address that. And I find when they know that you're working in a collaborative or we're working together in a collaborative way, it's really very, very helpful. Now, this week, you're going to develop some strategies for integrating the student feedback. One of the things that we do when we do a review of a faculty member's um, site is we'll arbitrarily go into anything in the grade book and see, is the student getting feedback from the faculty member? How does that, how is that demonstrated? Is it through a quiz, a test? Is it a paper? What's going on and what's happening there? Because that's really important in the online class. It also mentions here to evaluate the use of copyrighted content. Be really careful about that and look at that too, and look about what is really important about fair use. I use the kind of common licensing, so it's easy that I can go ahead and download, change whatever I might for a particular class. But you have to really look at what the licensing is. It says find an image through Creative Commons. That's actually what I meant, the Creative Commons, something that you can integrate in a learning unit. And then finally, build and share effectively designed online learning unit in your blog. As I mentioned before, I don't use blogs. I find that just doing it in here is extremely time consuming. Hopefully Canvas will be a lot better if we decide to go to that. But this one is very much labor intensive, getting the information and then having to go to the rubric on another page and not having information and rubric page on the same page makes it a bit difficult. So I'm hoping you're going to be going from good to great. And again, if you have pedagogical issues, you can always contact me, contact Dr. Dana Hester. And if there are technical difficulties, definitely, work with Chong Tran. He's my go-to person. I wish you luck this week, and as we almost are finished with the course, I hope you've gained a lot of information, a lot of points that you can put into practice. Continued success to each of you.